My name is Anna Sahak, and I'm on the pro side of our debate about gun control, along with Kaitlin and Karan Shepard. We believe that guns should not be outlawed, but that gun control should be stricter to protect the U.S. citizens. I will be discussing how many people are careless, and also about the Second Amendment. Kaitlin will be discussing how gun control will eliminate deaths and injuries caused by firearms, accidents, and the process of possessing a gun. And Karan will be doing the rebuttal. Okay. As of 2009, the United States has a population of 307 million people. Based on production data from the firearm manufacturers, there are roughly 300 million firearms owned by civilians in the United States as of 2010. Of these, about 100 million are handguns. Due to this large amount of guns in the U.S., we believe that guns should not be outlawed, but that gun control should be stricter to protect the U.S. citizens, as I said before. The main points that I will be addressing are the irresponsibility of people, the effects that this has on children, and how the Second Amendment is misunderstood by many Americans today. According to pros and cons of guncontrol.net, the National Institute of Justice found that more than half of guns were stored unlocked, and 16% were stored unlocked and loaded. An example of this, a case that was more recent, on March 19th, 4-year-old Keontis Moffett accidentally shot himself with a loaded gun that was stored in a box under his grandmother's bed. His grandmother was in the room at the time, and he found the gun under the bed in a box and was playing with it, aimed it up towards his head, and shot himself on accident. Children are often the victims of irresponsible gun owners. Owning a gun increases the risk of homicide and suicide in the home. With 32% of homicides by home gun occur during a family argument. On Wednesday, a 2-year-old was shot while watching TV in his room. This is also recent. This was last Wednesday. And he was watching cartoons in his room, and there was a man outside who was coming towards the house, aimed the gun, and shot several times while the father was outside. And there was a drug dealer that used to live in the residence, but the house was vacant for a month before they moved in. And the fact is that there's innocent people out there, and he was just sitting in his house watching TV, waiting for dinner. More laws need to be put in place in order to protect innocent children like this from being the victims. Second of all, in the present day, the Second Amendment is misunderstood by Americans. Guns had not been recorded at the time when the Second Amendment was written, so this made guns very expensive to purchase, as well as it also making them extremely hard to get possession of. They were kind of a rarity. But guns were not the most efficient weapon during this time. Knives were much more efficient, swords, that kind of stuff. But because a gun was not as modern as it is today, it would often misfire. And also back then, we were not protected by the policemen and firemen that we have today. And this only applied to the militia. We often see that the policemen and the firemen today are our protectors, and they are the ones who have own the guns. But also that back then it was a right for the people to own guns because they were their own source of protection. So in conclusion to these 2 points, in order to protect our children of America, why wouldn't you want to support stricter laws that are only there to benefit us? Although the Second Amendment of the United States originally seemed to call for the right to bear arms, modern times call for modern laws.
My side is gun control with Jake and Vinny. There's been a great debate recently about if we should have more gun control or not, and if less guns in our society will make it any safer. My group believes we don't need any more gun control, and that it would be a disadvantage for all law-abiding citizens in our country. My arguments are that if there are no guns allowed, how will citizens be able to protect their homes, family, and property? And guns will always exist with criminals, so gun control laws would be beneficial to criminals. So the first main point is, if citizens aren't allowed to own guns, how will they be able to protect their homes and property? Banning guns or prohibition will not make them disappear or make them any less dangerous. In order to protect themselves, their family, and their property is a legitimate right for citizens to own guns. With more citizens having registered guns, possible crimes such as massacres or killing sprees could be prevented or reduced. And if there could be someone there with a gun to stop that. It is also observed that if law-abiding citizens have guns, they're better equipped to handle situations such as massacres, where they might find themselves face-to-face with criminals, thus bringing the crime rate down. In a nationwide Gallup poll done in 2005, it showed 68% of gun owners own guns personally for protection of their homes and family, which shows that these law-abiding citizens are really no threat unless they feel unsafe or the need to use a gun. A second main point is many gun-related crimes already involve guns that aren't legally owned or registered. So if this is true, criminals will continue to have guns, or law-abiding citizens won't have a way to protect themselves. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, close to 90% of crimes that are committed with guns are illegally in their possession, which means they were stolen or smuggled, or etc. Also, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, only 6% of guns are legally bought and used later to commit a crime, which shows that people don't buy guns to commit crimes. They use it for hunting or to protect their homes or themselves or their family. And with more gun control laws, this will also create a huge black market for guns in our society and mainly benefit criminals at a huge degree, because criminals have a way easier access to the black market for guns, and with gun control laws, citizens won't have a way to find guns. To Anna's point of some of those killings, like the accidents and stuff, guns really have nothing to do with a lot of those killings. It is just a lack of responsibility by the owners themselves. So in conclusion, why have more gun control when it is a fact that criminals will always have a way to find guns, and is a good way for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves, their family, and their property? So I ask you, with more gun control and less guns in our country, will it really make our society any safer?
So, as my fellow arguer on the pro side, Anna, said, that we do not believe that guns should be completely outlawed. As Ruben was stating, we're not telling them to take them out of the country completely so that no one has any protection whatsoever. We believe that we should have stricter gun laws so that people that are unqualified to have guns do not obtain them, which is giving us more danger in our society. Producing more restrictions could bring the percentage of the injuries and the deaths down, because only the people who really know how to use them and actually are trained in using them would own them. According to a survey done in 2012 by the Public Policy Center, the number of non-fatal injuries in 2011 were at its highest since 2008, at over 55,000 injuries. And also the FBI states that in 2010, there was over 11,000 murders by firearms. And this is because that the unqualifiedness of all the people obtaining the guns brought danger to us, such as the individual behind the Virginia Tech massacre in 2007. He found a loophole within the requirements for obtaining a gun, and he avoided all the background checks that go with getting a gun. So he was mentally diagnosed 2 years earlier and was mentally unstable with suicidal thoughts and depression, but they didn't see that and they had to give him the gun because he found a loophole and he would have sued without getting the gun. And in the state of Wisconsin, you only have to be 18 years to obtain a gun, and you have to have a clean record. And with all firearms purchased, or for all handguns purchased, there's an instant background check, and there's a 48-hour waiting period. In other states, there's a 5-day period, but Wisconsin already had the waiting period set up before that law came, so we only have a 48-hour. And if there's any suspicions during that time, they are allowed to go longer. But with most people, a lot of the mentally unstable have not been medically diagnosed for their, so it's not in their records, so when you check, they have nothing on them, so you're giving a mentally unstable person a gun. And to obtain a gun, you don't need any license, you don't need training or classes, which I feel would be beneficial for us, that you have to take the classes and get certified in actually using a gun and know how to use it properly, which would lessen the accidents that had stated. And in 1982, there had been 67 shootings across the country, and the majority of them were mentally unstable, but a lot of them did not actually have it medically diagnosed. They just showed signs of it. And as Ruben had stated, that 68% own for protection, that's completely fine. It's a state of getting the people that are qualified and using it for a sport and using it for a hobby, because a lot of people get peace from going hunting, and they know how to use it, they know how to take it apart, they know how to clean it and make it safe for the kids around them. And for all the gun laws that we can bring in, if we make gun laws more strict, it's not saying that we're taking away guns from everyone and taking away the protection. We're taking away the opportunity for unqualified people to obtain a gun and use it against us to bring more danger to our society.
Alrighty. Gun control is a topic that's up for debate today in our country and also today in our class. Both sides of the spectrum have very different ideas on how to keep America as safe as possible. Our group personally believes that less gun control laws will lead to a safer America because it will allow people the opportunity to defend themselves if they want. I'm arguing that the right to own a gun to protect yourself is in the Constitution. There's no reason why we should be trying to take that right away after so many years. The main reason that I think that there should be less gun control is because the amount of crime that it will get rid of. The crime rates will most likely go down. Harvard actually did a study that showed that states with more gun laws had more gun-related deaths and violence. But then I understand that people are going to argue, like the Virginia Tech shooting, the Columbine shooting, that thing at the movie theater with the guy dressed up as Joker who killed a bunch of people, and the Sandy Hook shooting. Well, they're going to argue that more gun laws are going to stop stuff like that, when those are just like freak, extreme situations. But if you think about it, think about how much daily crime could be stopped if it was easier to carry a gun. Domestic violence, for example, would probably go down drastically. ClarkProsecutor.org reports that 4 million women every year say they have been beaten up by a husband, an ex-husband, or a male lover. In the United States, every 15 seconds, one woman is beaten up. Just the ability to carry a gun could do wonders for protecting women, especially in the inner city where I believe a lot of the numbers are coming from. So domestic violence aside, here are some other crimes that have pretty shocking facts that could be stopped by simply carrying a gun, not even having to use the gun. So 1 in every 12 women have reported that, and 1 in every 12 women and 1 in every 45 men have reported that they've been stalked in their lifetime. In 2011 in the United States, there were 354,396 armed robberies. And also 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men have been victimized by rape, which all probably would have been stopped if concealed carry was a lot easier than it is. My second point is protection is a right that everyone's entitled to. Quoting the Constitution, the Second Amendment says, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." It's been intact for hundreds of years. Why are we really trying to change that now? Right now, it's pretty tough to purchase a gun, register it. It's a really lengthy process, so most people don't even try to. They just kind of give up, and what's the point? According to the General Social Survey, in 2010, 37% of households said they kept a firearm in the home. If you think about it, if you're like a robber or something, that's pretty good odds that the house that you're planning to attack or rob doesn't have a gun in it. Gun laws are also taking away guns from the people who have no criminal intent at all, like the people who want to go hunting, just collect guns, that kind of stuff. Guns, whether we like it or not, will always be available to criminals. And like Ruben said, there will be a black market if we kind of get rid of guns and make it tougher. Also, like Ruben said, 90% of gun-related violence involve people who have a record as an adult and probably shouldn't even have the gun. Probably got it in a criminal way. And to Kaitlin's point, when they said they're not trying to get rid of guns, they just want more restrictions. There aren't really many restrictions we could add, really. The class maybe, but there's a lot of crime that goes around when they obtain guns for criminal acts. So, like, criminals aren't, like, if you have a record, you're probably not even supposed to have a gun. Mentally unstable people aren't supposed to have guns. Immigrants aren't to have guns, just to name a few. Regulating the amount of guns people have and the type they have is essential, I get it. However, simply owning a gun shouldn't be such a hassle, especially if it's for protection. There's a reason the right to bear arms was put in the Constitution. If you were in a bad situation, wouldn't you want the ability to defend yourself?
After viewing the arguments on our side of the point, it's very logical to agree with our situation, mainly because of Ruben's point saying that criminals will get guns regardless because they're criminals, and the potential of the black market rising, as well as Jake's responses of the infringement of the Second Amendment and the decrease of domestic violence that could possibly happen. With the arguments on the other side, with Anna's point about the murder rates in the U.S., I found a academic journal on JSTOR that talks about the rates of the U.S., and it talked about the population of every 100,000 population. There's in the 1980s there's a 10.2% of homicide, and when you went through the years, all the way to 1997, it dropped all the way down to 6.8, and at that time, guns were available. So therefore, it's logical to agree that guns have little to no correlation with actual death rates in the U.S. as far as homicides go. With Katie's argument about obtaining guns, I went on the NRA website, and it stated regulations about how to purchase guns, and it explained $13 fees for transfers, 48-hour waiting periods, and the prohibition of criminal purchase of weapons. So there are, in fact, very good laws in order to prevent things such as homicides from criminals. And with another Katie's response, that people can be careless sometimes with the guns. The fact of the matter is, people are careless no matter what you're doing, so it's illogical to enforce stricter laws just because of that. And for another reason, I have a friend, Faith, who has a boyfriend in the U.S. Army National Guard, and his name is Paul Larson. I had a phone interview with him, and he explained to me the training process of the weapons used for the U.S. Army. he told me that in gun training, they were all told to disassemble and clean and hold the gun properly. And they went through box drills by shooting cardboard boxes, and then after that, they went through the qualification range, where everybody had to be absolutely perfect, and to even continue. They wouldn't even stop until everybody was perfect. So that's proof that not everybody is careless. There are very careful people as far as guns go, and that is the reason why we shouldn't have incredibly strict gun rules.
Jake talked about reasons why there are less gun control, but there are more pressing matters why there should be. He talked about how if we have less gun control, more people would be allowed to carry guns, and that criminals would be less likely to attack a random person because he or she might be carrying a concealed weapon. One of the arguments given by Buzzle.com that had an article on the pros and cons of gun control says, one often hears anti-gun control activists argue that if guns were banned or severely regulated, only the criminals would have access to them and law-abiding citizens would be helpless. This is an eye for an eye logic. America already has more guns than it has people. Has this resulted in a lowering of gun crime? The answer is an emphatic no. Criminals will always find ways to obtain illegal firearms like they do in every country. Regulating guns will at least prevent their access from homes and businesses. In fact, if both parties have guns, it will most definitely result in a firefight and unnecessary bloodshed. However, the problem may be the guns themselves and the proliferation in the American way of life. Studies have shown that owning a gun doesn't stop gun violence. Concealed handguns are not an effective form of self-defense. A November 2009 peer-reviewed study published in the American Journal of Public Health by Charles Brandis, Ph.D., found that someone carrying a gun for self-defense was 4.5 times more likely to be shot during an assault than an assault victim without a gun. Attackers often surprise victims, making it difficult to use a concealed handgun. Also, shall-issue laws lead to increases in the rates of rape, robbery, and violent crime. A 1995 peer-reviewed study published in the Journal of Criminal Law and Criminology by David McDowell, Ph.D., of 5 urban cities found that gun homicide rates increased an average of 4.5% following the enactment of shall-issue laws. A May 2009 peer-reviewed study by Yale professors Ian Ayers, Ph.D., and John DeHue, Ph.D., that appeared in the Econ Journal Watch, found that shall-issue laws increased aggravated assault between 1977 and 2006. Several researchers have found substantial flaws in the methodology of a landmark 1998 study by John Lott, Ph.D., and David Mustard, Ph.D., which claimed that more guns means less crime. Both of these studies were on concealedguns.procon.org. Also, the Second Amendment was talked about, and Anna brought up how it was misunderstood. Another argument from Buzzle.com says that gun lobbyists hide behind the Second Amendment, saying that it gives them a constitutional right to own and bear arms. However, if we take a closer look at the Second Amendment itself, it talks about militia, an army or fighting force that will protect the state and has rights to bear arms for this specific purpose, not individuals claiming their self-defense from imagined enemies. The text reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's true. However, having gun control laws is intended to restrict the number of guns floating around the system ready to be used on innocents. So in conclusion, whether law-abiding citizens or criminals have guns, gun control laws are here to help, not hinder.